Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, a podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Meslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. João Franco is a self-taught coach focused on nutrition and biohacking who's been on a carnivore diet for over 3 years. Over 1,100 days, I believe. You can update me on that. Thanks to the diet, he's been able to manage and get relief from IBS, depression, gingivitis, plaque, chronic hunger, and hemorrhoids. Welcome to the show, João.
Hello, Scott. Thank you so much for your invitation. First of all, let me just say that I'm very happy to be here with you because in the carnivore sphere, Carnivore Cast is actually one of my favorite podcasts, and it's definitely one of the most prominent. So yeah, I'm really honored to be here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for saying that. The pleasure is all mine. If you enjoy the podcast, it's all about the guests. It's not thanks to me. But yeah, very, very lucky to be speaking to you today. João, can you start by telling us a little bit about how you got to carnivore, how you were eating before, what your health was like? Give folks an idea of, your story and your background.
Sure. Well, I will start at the beginning. So, my name is João and I'm 41 years old. I'm from Lisbon, Portugal, and I have been on a carnivore diet since the 12th of March, 2018. So, yeah, it's already more than 3 years. So, I started carnivore not because of weight loss itself, but because I was struggling with some persistent major underlying issues like high blood pressure, insulin resistance, and mostly digestive issues like IBS. And I was feeling depressed and lethargic, tired constantly. So this is how I came to start the carnivore diet, because I have read about it and I was reading about it. And actually it was pretty much at the beginning, of this carnivore buzz, worldwide speaking. So I was reading about some folks who tried a meat-only diet, and they thought that it's just great and it improved so many biomarkers. So I was like curious because I already tried a low carb and a ketogenic diet, so it came to me naturally. This this chapter of trying the carnivore diet seemed like a very natural thing to do. So I started reading about how important it is to eliminate some foods so that we can have an idea of what is causing some of these conditions, mainly, as I said, and I can also refer to gingivitis, plaque, hemorrhoids, stuff like that, the abdominal bloating. So yeah, this is how I started. I wanted to try to solve it by myself because physicians and doctors, they were not answering to my troubles. They were not helping at all because, for example, the digestive issues, they are answered here and in many countries, they are answered with an increase of fiber consumption. And this was a complete disaster. Just before I turned into low carb, I was really, really going through a rough time with the increased fiber consumption, and the digestive issues just got worse and worse. So this is how I came to enter the carnivore diet.
Yeah, that's amazing. And phenomenal to hear about your transformation, and really admirable to hear how diligent and strict you've been with it over the years. What has motivated you to stay so adherent to the carnivore diet over this time?
Well, that's an interesting question. I actually was lucky, and I am lucky to be surrounded by lots of carnivores. So I have to say that social media, especially Instagram, has given me the opportunity to exchange and to connect with carnivores all over the world. So, for example, it's really I'm really truly honored to be amongst so many carnivore fellows, like, for example, Sarah Kleiner, Brett Lloyd, or Amber Wentworth. They have achieved so much on their own carnivore healing journeys. So we are more or less of the same vintage, let's just say. We started more or less in the same time. So we are following each other, and we are just exchanging so much positive feedback. And it's interesting that we don't know each other, even though, for example, I already spoke with Brett or even Amber, but we don't know each other in real life, let's just say. And we have so much in common. The way we dealt with the improvements in our health, and the way we are working on our network, like to try and influence people to at least give it a thought, try to consider increasing the consumption of meat, red meat. And so we are like the odd ones out, like crazy people who are telling you to eat more meat and to eat less vegetables, So yeah, we're weird people, but we are actually doing something which I believe is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're doing fantastic work. Can you talk about what motivates you to try to spread the carnivore message and help people and help, you've talked a lot about helping people who are just beginning their journey. What motivates you to do that?
Well, what motivates me is this. It's interesting that you ask me this, because I keep trying to find ways of answering to this question. And today I was actually thinking about this, and it came to my mind a very simple thought. There is this. We have this reaction sometimes in our lives when we are facing something which is really the opposite of what we have been taught. We have this reaction which is like, we say, no, I'm sorry, but this is too much to be true. This is too good to be true. And so we tend to analyze things and to put things in perspective, considering what we know many times, very often. We are afraid of what we don't know. So my purpose is actually to tell people that I am not trying to sell you anything, but I'm just amazed how increasing meat in my diet has changed me, my body, and my mind in so many ways. So this is a very naive statement. You just say, look, it's like this. This is a big deal. And it sounds, or it may sound, too good to be true. And it does sound completely against what we have been hearing. But this is really great. Try for yourself. This is what I want to tell people. Try. Don't pay attention to what the media fire is telling you. Red meat causes cancer. Red meat causes this. It causes practically anything, virtually, and every organ suffers from red meat consumption. If you take a look at the epidemiology, it's all like this. Red meat bad, veggie is good. Try this and you will see how it will change you.
Yeah, I really love that message. Just take the leap, experiment. You have so little to lose and so much to gain is what I tell people. Because, what's the worst that can happen to you after 30 days, 60 days, but it could change your life. You could feel better forever.
Exactly.
And yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to say that there is a personal side of inspiration also, because my mother, she is a chronic kidney disease patient. She has chronic kidney disease now for 15 years. And of course, it started with hypertension. So this is also my personal agenda, my familiar agenda. So I have this agenda, which is to, in some way, try to convince my mother, even though I cannot do it directly, because, it's very difficult when you start telling older people what they should eat and what they shouldn't eat, because they will ask you, but are you a doctor? Suddenly, these things, and where are you coming from with this? Sorry, but my doctor tells me this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, so João, don't try and, force these things down your mother's head. Just try to show her, leading by example, being the silent, it's like a silent revolution. I want to change my mother's diet, but I want her to think that it's her own idea. A bit like Inception,
Yeah. It's so hard to influence our family members and our friends. There's just so much baggage attached to everything they know about us. It's amazing. I think the best thing you can do, and you are doing it, which I admire, is being that shining example and showing how much it can change your life and your attitude. And to that point, João, can you talk about some of the initial results you found when you switched to a carnivore diet, and maybe what has taken longer to transform for you? What were some of the initial results, and then what are some things that you realized a year in, 2 years in?
Sure. Well, the first thing that I want to say is hunger. I realized how different the notion of hunger is from whatever diet I was on before the carnivore diet. You read sometimes older carnivores will give you such minimalistic or laconic advice like this: eat meat, drink water. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but this is it's way oversimplified. I want something more complex, but then you start understanding that it is that simple. So my initial reaction, or should I say the first positive aspect that I noticed from eating a meat-only diet or an animal foods diet, was this very different notion of what is to be hungry. So coming from a background where you eat 5 or 6 times a day, and then you went through a low carb process when you start eating less because you already know that you can cut the snacks, which makes sense, of course. Then I would say that there is a much bigger leap between the low carb diet and the carnivore diet, because it makes the whole difference, So yeah, I realized that I could be without food for several days. And I have tried fasting, and it wasn't in any way forced. I mean, I wasn't like, I need to fast for 3 or 4 days because of this, because of that. No, I was actually, I already started reading about the science and the benefits of fasting, yes, but I didn't want to fast. I was already, with I would say an optimal body fat percentage around 12, 13%. So why would I fast that long? So the only reason why I started fasting, and those fasts were actually longer, was because I was trying to understand my hunger signals and my satiety signal. And this was actually my first discovery. It's just amazing because we can be without food and without it being detrimental for us for so much longer. And then I also started noticing immediately, I would say, when I say immediately, I'm referring usually to the first 30 or 60 days, sure, high blood pressure. And my mood was actually more stable. So this made me try my own research. Why is this happening? What is it with the hormones and neurotransmitters that are, why it makes it so important to think what is happening inside of your body, biochemically speaking? What is happening? So this is a journey of discovery, of self-discovery. Of course, you can cross it with some very interesting books. So yeah, I would say that my first impressions were hunger, the mood, and last but not the least, my digestive issues. It's important to mention them because, when you are on a carnivore diet, the bloating, the abdominal bloating, the digestive issues it's just unbelievable. How did I not discover this earlier? I mean, it's just insane. It's so good. And it's just almost too good to be true, as I said before, but it is really that good.
This episode is brought to you by Element Electrolytes. We know that salt, potassium, and magnesium are essential minerals, especially for those on carnivore, keto, and low-carb diets to relieve hunger, dizziness, cramps, headaches, and keep so many of your bodily processes running optimally, including sleep, brain and mental health, hormonal health, your heart, immunity, and more. Element electrolytes are convenient, evidence-based, and delicious. My wife and I have been using Element for years, every single day. They're great for fueling hard workouts, getting adapted and beating keto flu, fasting, traveling with them, and kickstarting your day with energy. They're used by Navy SEALs, Olympic weightlifters, jiu-jitsu athletes, and everyday people who want to make themselves better, like you and me. They're also founded by superhero Rob Wolf. LMNT is offering free, that's right, free people, Element sample packs to Carnivore Cast listeners. All you have to do is pay for shipping. Go to drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast to claim this awesome deal. That's drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast, one word, and I'll include a link in the show notes. Yeah, it's amazing, especially coming from a high fiber diet, which it sounds like doctors were recommending for you. And Joe, I think one thing listeners will know I've been on a little bit of a kick lately is what were some of the challenges in getting started? Because so often we love to talk about the highlights of the carnivore diet, and I think people don't do enough justice to presenting some of the struggles or some of the things that can be upfront hurdles when starting this diet, which I think is important because when new people come to it, they may be expecting this magic bullet, this seamless, unicorns and rainbows, easy experience, when in actuality, there can be challenges for most of us.
Well, absolutely. And even after 3 years, you're confronted daily with these challenges. Because I have to say that throughout my journey on the carnivore diet, I have come to realize that the biggest changes in me ended up having very little to do with what I eat, actually. So I would say that there is a big challenge, which is the social life. We tend to give so much importance to our social life because in many ways, we're all looking for approval. We want to be, we want that people accept us. We want to be accepted. My question is, do you want to be accepted, or do you want to be well and happy in control of a good physical and mental form? I mean, this is ultimately my decision. So the challenge, the biggest challenge as a carnivore, is to rewire the brain so that we can understand that we should be choosing foods according to its nutritional value and not to make a colorful plate. Food is fuel. It's a necessity. It is not entertainment. But we all know that everything involves food. All our events in all our lives, all important events are surrounded by food. So it's a very difficult subject, extremely cultural and personal. And every person will have its own convictions, because they read something, because somebody they trust said something. It's really difficult. So at the top of the list, I would put definitely the social life as one of the biggest challenges. Another challenge is how can I say this? It's like conformity. It's also a challenge because, and I think that this is one of the most important issues of our time. And again, it has very little to do with what we eat. The truth is that we've come to accept that it's okay to feel tired or hungry all the time. We have accepted that having headaches or mental fog is quite normal, or that having, for example, muscle cramps, acne, or occasional bouts of diarrhea, it's okay. But it's not. We tend to normalize these symptoms, these signals, these pathologies, but they are actually a direct result from what we have been told to eat. So conformity, it's important. Social life and conformity. And the third, and this I would relate to food, of course, when you're with more people, when you're around people who are not carnivores, who are not eating meat at all, because we all have friends who are on plant-based diets, or at least they eat some plants, or they can be vegetarians or ovo-lacto vegetarians, something like this. It triggers so many issues, fundamental quarrels, I would say, or people start discussing the sex of the angels. It's like this, we want to be right. I don't want to be right. If I'm arguing with a vegetarian, if he wants to be right, it's okay. I just want to feel good. So in the end, I will move away from this conflict, let's just say, and by saying, man, you do what you do. And I understand that you have some arguments. Some arguments can be strong, some are not so strong. But, in the end, what matters is that you will feel good. I'm feeling good like this, so let me do it like this. Because, for example, another thing is this idea, this impression that because you eat more meat, that in some way you're disrespecting animals. But if we have been disrespecting animals, then we've always disrespected them, because meat is, I would say, the most important change in our nutrition since the first hominids. I mean, it was because of meat that we became bipedal, or that our brain got bigger. So where is this disrespect for the lives of the animals? I mean, seriously, you just go to Instagram and find nature is metal. And you will see that nature is not all about, teddy bears and colorful animals, beautiful animals smiling, like these rainbows. It's not all roses and rainbows. And sunshines. Nature is lethal. It's scary, and it can be gross. And actually, we humans are, I would say, the most conscious predator, because we actually have changed the way we kill our game. We have changed the way we kill livestock to make their lives better, to make it less. To make it less or more honorable? Because the lions and all those apex predators, if you go to Nature is Metal, you will see how they kill. And they don't kill with mercy. They are killing because they need to eat. So this is violent, but in a very natural way. There is no evil there. They just kill because they need to eat.
Yeah, I really like that. I love how you highlight some of the psychological and social barriers. I think those are so huge and often written off as, no one cares what you eat. Don't worry about what other people think. But we're humans, we're social creatures, and we can't deny that those judgments and those emotions don't affect us. So I think that's really critical. And talking about like society and culture and food being part of that, what is it like living in Portugal eating a carnivore diet? How does that work for you?
Well, first of all, we have lots of fish. So we have lots of
sardines, right?
Sardines, yes. Sardine, it's my omega-3 go-to food. Usually, if I want to boost my omega-3, it's sardines or mackerels or jack mackerels. But it's quite easy. Scott, it's quite easy to do the carnivore diet in Portugal because it's a very small country, and we have lots of. We have the problem with feedlots, of course. Who doesn't? What country doesn't? Right, but. I'm starting to see a lot of independent and small producers, and they are all turning into this, holistic management of their territories. So there is an increase of regenerative agriculture, and of course, I'm also including livestock. And look, the meat is really tasty. We have lots of interesting dishes, and the base of our diet is actually of a carnivore nature. So apart from the soups and the rice, the beans, there is actually a carnivore base. We have meat-based soups. We have lots of fresh fish, seafood also, shrimps and lobster, oysters. So, well, of course, it makes sense because we are a coastal country. We have this I would say, an advantage opposite to a country like Russia, for example, who mostly has, apart from the coastal line, who has a problem with the access to such foods, fish and seafood. But yeah, the carnivore is actually easy in Portugal. And compared to other countries, European and American countries, we have a slightly cheaper meat. And when I say cheaper, I'm talking about grass-fed. Because from what I have read, the cost of grass-fed meat in countries like England, or generally speaking, the Great Britain, and in America is much, much more expensive than here. And also we have lots of pork. And we have, I don't know if you ever tried, but we have an amazing breed of pork called the Iberian pig, which is common. It's like an Iberian Peninsula treat. So Portugal and Spain have the access to this breed of pig. We call it the black pig, but it's mostly called the Iberian pork. It's really, really tasty with lots of infiltrated fat. I mean, it's much fattier, it's really nice.
Yeah, I had a chance to sample some of that when I went to the Basque country in Spain, and it was phenomenal. Very delicious. And what does sort of a typical day of eating look like for you, João? And maybe how has that evolved over the years? How has it changed?
Well, my eating patterns are actually quite the same as when I started, because I started carnivore as an OMAD carnivore, and I have kept it. Sometimes on weekends I make two smaller meals. I have two smaller meals, but usually I eat one meal per day. And I have seen, actually, it's an interesting question, because I have seen that some of my patterns changed. For example, I eat much less steaks, actually. And I'm eating lots of, stewed and slow cooked meats, so usually, because I have, and I need to eat around a kilo of meat, more or less, I cook them on a big pan or a slow cooking pan. So yeah, and of course eggs. So I would say that my typical meal is, let's say, around a kilo of meat, whether it's slow cooked or in the oven, and about 6 eggs. I make scrambled eggs with butter or lard or tallow. It depends. It depends on my mood.
And how about in terms of fat to protein ratios? Do you have something you target there, or have you played with that at all?
Well, actually, yes. In the beginning of 2020, I started what I call, and what Amber O'Hearn calls, the lipivore. So I'm actually doing a higher fat carnivore. So it's 4 months now. Yes, I used to eat 1-to-1. I would say the ratio, it was like this. I tried 1-to-2. That is protein and fat. So I even tried, and I didn't like it. Actually, I actually also tried a higher protein carnivore, and I realized that eating more protein and less fat made me more hungry and more grumpy. So I don't know if it was all that glucose, but I was, or just the missing fat, because fat is really, really nutritious and satiating. So I have come to prefer a higher fat carnivore over the years. And the last year was actually, yes, it was probably my fattiest year of carnivore.
And do you find you have any challenges with having high amounts of liquid fats versus fats on animals, like eating a lot of butter or suet or lard? Some people find indigestion both ways when eating a lot of those fats.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is. I believe that everyone has its own personal threshold, and this is why carnivore is so amazing, because there is really no one size fits all. So, for example, I can read about Brett telling me that he found his perfect ratio of, this perfect combination of fat and protein. And when I try what he eats, usually I realize that this doesn't work for me, because all sorts of reasons. Because we need to contemplate the amount of physical exercise. We need to contemplate what kind of activity. I mean, what am I doing during the day? Am I working on a farm, or am I sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours, which is the case, by the way, because I'm a graphics designer. So you need to contemplate a lot of things. And so I've come to this, let's call it like a comfortable balance, which is, when I go to the toilet, ultimately is what tells me if I'm doing the right thing or not. Because, for example, if I go to the toilet and if it's too liquid, I'm consuming too much fat. And if it's too binding, or if it's not so easy to go, then I should I should increase my fat consumption. So I have got, and also cheese. We can also mention cheese, because cheese is binding, and I find it to be binding. So every time that I eliminate cheese, and I have done it several times, yeah, I'm a cheese addict. I need to do it.
Yep.
I have cheese is cheese, man. Oh my God, it's just amazing. But yeah, I need to be careful. I need to be careful with cheese in that respect. I mean, regarding the sugar addiction, because I am a sugar addict, and it's a huge problem. So yeah, I tend to evaluate my it's how I find it easier to tell people, look, if you're having digestive issues, and these digestive issues are related to a more loose stool, then you need to control the fat. And if not, if you feel like you want to go but you can't, then you have a problem. It could be the lack of magnesium. It could be, salt can also help you. But I believe that this amount of fat is very by individual. So we need to analyze it like this. Every person is different.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And that's why I always recommend folks self-experiment. I get questions all the time on what fat to protein ratio folks I think they should eat, or I'm eating. And I always say, try both ways, give it a few weeks at least to shake out, see how you feel, try different sources, track different metrics, different markers of success, whether it's your energy, your satiety, your gut health, and see what works best for you.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
How about organs, João? Are you a big fan of organs? Talk about which ones are your favorite and how you like to prepare them.
Well, I don't want to brag, but I'm a huge fan of organ meats. So I don't know. Maybe I'm the world's #1 fan of organ meats. I eat them all. And when I say all, I'm only not probably including testicles, but I will explain that. So the thing is, I get my meat from a local farm, and I have come to an understanding with them, and that's why my order is very, very special, because I have every 15 days I have 12 or 13, 14 kilos of meat. But of all this quantity of meat, I would say that more or less half is organs. So I eat tongue, I eat heart. It's difficult for me to consider heart and tongue organ meats, but actually they are considered organ meat. So, but I also eat the gallbladder. I eat lungs. I have never eaten lungs before, and it's so tasty. And I'll give you an amazing recipe. I also eat the spleen, and of course the liver. I mean, and the kidney. But of course, the liver is, the most famous organ, and it's not by accident or chance, because it's a multivitamin powerhouse. It's really amazing. So yeah, I'm completely in favor of the consumption of organ meats, but because I love them. So I always say to people, I like eating organs, so I eat them, and they are quite nutritious and very cheap, actually. But it's not mandatory, because when you start the carnivore, when you enter the carnivore realm, you see so much. There are so many people saying so many different things, but I think that this is important to underline what the older or the more veteran carnivores will tell you is that many of them, they do not eat organs at all, and they have no symptoms of the lack of those vitamins that organs give you. So this is very individual. Try for yourself, again, like you said, Scott, again, self-experiment. Try with organs, try without it. There are so many organs, and it's not disgusting just because they are in some way mainstream. People look at organs and they think, oh my God, this is gross. Why is it gross? Because you know that it's a kidney? Because, for example, I have tried with my own family giving them things that they don't know what they are eating, and they like it. And when I tell them, you just ate spleen, and they are like, oh my God, I want to throw up. No, organs are very, very tasty.
Yeah, I love them. And it can be fun and kind of the creative delight to find different ways to cook organs and taste the different textures and things like that. I used to find them disgusting and repulsive, but it's amazing how your tastes change over time.
You're absolutely right. It's actually funny. For example, I will just give you a very fast example with kidneys. For example, I have never tried raw kidneys because I was under the impression that, when you take some kidney, and especially because that it belongs to the urinary system, you have this impression that it will smell like urine, but it doesn't. And I tried raw kidney, and it's actually tastier than cooked. So it's, you after 3 years of carnivore, you're still discovering some things and how to cook it and what is best. Liver, I like to slice it very thin and just to eat it raw. And it's much tastier, and it's actually sweeter. Could it be because of the hepatic starch? I don't know. Glycogen, funny. But liver actually tastes sweeter to me.
It's strange to me. Raw liver tastes like peanut butter.
Wow.
It's like a chewy peanut butter. It's really weird. I don't know how I get that flavor out of it. But I love it. And I'm curious, what's like, if you were to talk to someone about the carnivore diet, or when you're talking to people who aren't carnivores, and it can almost be hard to communicate the change. I think you said at the top of the show about how it's hard to not sound like a heretic or sound like you're selling a magic pill. But what's maybe the most amazing change or thing you see about the carnivore diet?
Difficult question. I like it. Well, it's this context. I would say that I would go outside of the nutrition realm, and I will just situate us. So I would ask this person, how do they think that we evolved from a 500 cubic centimeter brain, 4-legged, tree-hugging and leaf-eating monkey to a 1,500 cubic centimeter brain with 2 legs, smart, cooperative, and megafauna predator? So I can say this in 2 words: climate change or ice age. Or I can just say it in 1 word: meat. We need to eat meat. We have been told in the last part of the 20th century, we have been told that meat is bad for you. But before the 20th century, nobody was saying that meat was bad. There are many cases, even in literature, many cases where people have solved some of our modern diseases of civilization, we can say, with, taking starchy food from your diet and just eating meat. So this is it's difficult to understand, and that's why it's sometimes it's really hard to force so much information, and people might not be prepared. So sometimes I think that we need to zoom out. We need to go away from the valley. We need to go to the top of the mountain and look to the valley. And this is a matter of perspective. We can discuss all about hormones, about the benefits of eating vegetables or eating meat. But in the end, where did we come from? Where are we? And where will we go? I mean, do we want to go back into eating vegetables? Because this is where we have come from. Because if we were truly vegetarians, we would still be hanging on trees, throwing poop at each other. We became meat eaters, and this is important because the species will only evolve, if they continue doing what they did when they were evolving. So this is what I tell people, and it's like this, carnivore diet. Okay, meat only. Should I eat meat only? No, I'm not saying that you should eat only meat. You can eat some vegetables, but think about it. Meat should be at least, the very least, the base of your diet.
Yeah, I like returning to principles and zooming out and taking that macro approach. That's really powerful. Well, João, this has been phenomenal. Really appreciate you coming on. I think people really enjoy what you have to say and hopefully follow along with your content. Where can people find out more about you? And I'll, of course, have links to everything in the show notes as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Scott. You can find me on Instagram under Carnivore I Am, and that's all. I'm focusing everything on my Instagram. So yeah, Carnivore I Am.
Awesome. It's a great handle, easy to remember, and I'll have a link to it as well. Well, thank you again so much for your time today, João. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Scott.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out, and share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered, or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Carnivore Cast, or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.